37 seconds ago, Senator Amy Klobuchar did something in the Senate Judiciary Committee chamber that nobody saw coming. She opened a thin manila folder, positioned it deliberately in front of the cameras, and asked a question so direct, so cutting, that the entire room went completely silent for exactly 37 seconds. Not the polite pause of people gathering their thoughts, not the brief hesitation before someone jumps in with an answer, but 37 full seconds of absolute crushing silence where you could hear the air conditioning hum, cameras autofocusing, and the collective held breath of everyone in that chamber. The witness at the table, a senior Justice Department official whose name appeared on documents related to classified file handling, visibly froze. His right hand, which had been resting confidently on the witness table, slowly moved toward his water glass, but he never picked it up. The hand just hovered there, trembling slightly, as if his brain had sent the signal, but his body couldn't complete the action. Behind him, 3 attorneys sat in identical dark suits, their leather briefcases closed, their prepared response folders suddenly useless. One of them leaned forward as if to whisper advice, then stopped mid-motion, realizing there was no advice that could fix what was happening. Let me take you back to how we got here, because understanding the context makes what happened next even more devastating. Senate Judiciary Committee Oversight Hearing, February 21st, 2026, 10:47 a.m. This was supposed to be routine. Document classification protocols, records management procedures, the kind of technical discussion that usually empties the press gallery within the first hour. Republican senators would defend existing processes. Democratic senators would push for more transparency. Everyone would read prepared statements. Standard congressional theater. But Amy Klobuchar walked into that hearing room different. Reporters who've covered her for years noticed it immediately. She wasn't carrying her usual thick briefing binders, just one thin manila folder. And anyone who knows Klobuchar understands what that means. She doesn't bring props unless she's about to end someone's career. The first 90 minutes proceeded exactly as scripted. Other senators asked their questions about data security, digital archiving systems, interagency coordination. The Justice Department witness, a 30-year career official, delivered smooth bureaucratic responses. He smiled at appropriate moments, made eye contact with friendly senators, projected the calm confidence of someone who'd survived dozens of these hearings. Then, at exactly 10:47 a.m., Chairman Dick Durbin recognized Senator Klobuchar for her questioning time. The energy in the room shifted instantly. Press gallery reporters looked up from their phones. Camera operators adjusted their positions. Even the stenographers seemed to sit up straighter, because everyone who covers Congress knows that Amy Klobuchar doesn't waste her time on theatrical grandstanding. When she asks questions, she already has the answers. And when she brings a folder to a hearing, someone's about to have a very bad day. Klobuchar opened her folder with deliberate slowness. She pulled out a single sheet of paper, held it up just long enough for the cameras to capture the official letterhead and classification markings, then set it down in front of her. She asked about document handling procedures, standard stuff. The witness answered confidently, explaining established protocols for classified material management. Klobuchar nodded along, making notes. Nothing seemed unusual yet. Then she pulled out a second document. This one made the witness's expression flicker for just a fraction of a second. A micro-expression of concern that trained observers caught immediately. She asked about the specific protocols for presidential records. The witness's answer came slightly slower this time. More careful. The smooth confidence had developed a tiny crack. But here's where everything changed. Here's the moment that will be replayed on every news network for the next week. Klobuchar pulled out a third document from her folder. She held it up, making sure every camera in the room could see the classification stamps, the official seals, the unmistakable markers of a document that should not be in a senator's hands during a public hearing unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. Then she asked her question, not shouted, not dramatic, just calm, measured, and absolutely devastating. She asked where specific files related to Donald Trump's handling of classified documents were currently located. She referenced document numbers, specific dates, classification levels, and she asked why those particular files had been flagged for special handling outside normal archival procedures. The room went silent, completely, utterly silent. The witness's face went through a remarkable transformation in about 5 seconds. First, shock that she had those specific document identifiers. Second, rapid calculation about how to respond. Third, a look of pure panic as he realized there was no good answer. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. 5 seconds passed. The silence deepened. 10 seconds. Reporters were frantically typing, but nobody spoke. 15 seconds. The witness reached for his water glass. His hand was shaking so badly that water sloshed over the rim when he tried to drink. A drop hit the witness table with an audible sound that seemed impossibly loud in the suffocating quiet. C-SPAN cameras zoomed in. Every major network's camera operator instinctively tightened their shot, sensing they were capturing something historic. In the press gallery, veteran reporters who'd covered thousands of hearings sat motionless because they understood they were watching a career end in real time. 20 seconds. His attorneys, seated directly behind him, were frozen. Not passing notes, not whispering advice, just staring at their client with expressions that said they knew this was unrecoverable. 25 seconds. Senator Klobuchar sat perfectly still, her eyes locked on the witness, waiting. Not pressing, not repeating the question, just waiting, because she knew the silence itself was the answer. 30 seconds. Someone in the press gallery coughed. It sounded like a gunshot in the oppressive quiet. 37 seconds. Finally, the witness spoke. His voice came out strained, barely above a whisper. He said he would need to review the specific documents in a classified setting before providing a comprehensive response. It was the worst possible answer because it confirmed everything. It confirmed that those files existed, that they were being handled differently, that there was something about them that required special protocols. And most damning of all, it confirmed that a senior Justice Department official couldn't explain why in an open congressional hearing. Klobuchar didn't need to press further. The 37 seconds of silence had told everyone in that room exactly what they needed to know. Something was being hidden. Something about Trump's files was being treated differently than standard document handling procedures would require. And the people responsible for that special treatment couldn't explain why without classified briefings and closed-door sessions. But she wasn't finished. Because Amy Klobuchar hadn't brought just one devastating document to this hearing. She pulled out another sheet of paper. This one was different. A timeline. She held it up, showing dates spanning from January 2021 through February 2026, and she walked through what that timeline revealed. Each date she mentioned landed like a hammer blow, each gap in the timeline highlighting another irregularity. The witness's breathing became audibly rapid, picked up by the sensitive microphones positioned at the witness table. Republican senators on the committee shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether to defend the witness or distance themselves from what was unfolding. Standard presidential documents transferred to National Archives, 30 days after administration ends. Standard procedure followed for every president since the Presidential Records Act was enacted, except for specific files related to Trump's classified document handling. Those files transferred to Justice Department custody. Special classification protocols applied. Access restricted beyond normal classified document procedures. Timeline, ongoing for 5 years. The witness tried to interrupt, tried to explain that ongoing investigations require special handling. But Klobuchar cut through that deflection with surgical precision. She pointed out that the investigation into Trump's document handling had been publicly closed. No charges filed related to the specific documents she was asking about. So why were those files still under Special Justice Department custody? Why weren't they following standard archival procedures? Why the exceptional treatment? Another silence. Not 37 seconds this time, but long enough. long enough for everyone watching to understand that something wasn't right. The witness fell back on classification protocols, national security concerns, ongoing review processes, all the standard bureaucratic shields that usually work to deflect congressional oversight. Except Amy Klobuchar had one more document in her folder, a letter from the National Archives, dated 3 weeks ago, stating that they had formally requested transfer of specific Trump-related files from Justice Department custody, stating that those files no longer met any criteria for exceptional handling, stating that Justice Department had denied the transfer request without substantive justification. The National Archives, the official custodian of presidential records, was being blocked from accessing presidential records by the Justice Department, and nobody could explain why. The hearing devolved into procedural chaos after that, motions for closed session briefings, demands for classified document production, but none of that mattered in terms of the story that would dominate the news cycle. What mattered was 37 seconds of silence. 37 seconds where a Justice Department official had no answer for why Trump's files were being treated differently than every other president's documents. 37 seconds that confirmed what congressional investigators had suspected but couldn't prove until that moment. Within minutes, the footage went viral. News networks interrupted programming. Legal experts called it the most damning non-answer in congressional oversight history. And social media exploded with one simple question: what's in those files that requires 5 years of special handling? The witness left the hearing knowing his career was fundamentally altered. Not because of what he said, but because of what he couldn't say. Because 37 seconds of silence in a congressional hearing is a confession without words. Amy Klobuchar closed her manila folder. She had no more questions. She didn't need any more questions, because in one exchange, with 3 documents and a single devastating question, she had exposed a 5-year pattern of exceptional document handling that nobody could justify. Sometimes accountability doesn't require hours of testimony or aggressive interrogation. Sometimes it just requires one senator with a manila folder, the patience to let silence speak for itself, and the precision to ask questions that have no good answers. 37 seconds. That's all it took. 37 seconds of crushing silence that confirmed what the Justice Department witness couldn't admit and couldn't deny. Trump's files were being handled differently. The normal rules weren't being followed, and the people responsible for that decision had no explanation they could provide in public. The clip is still spreading, the subpoenas are being drafted, and somewhere in the Justice Department, officials are probably having very uncomfortable conversations about what happens when 5 years of special handling gets exposed in 37 seconds of silence. Because that's what Amy Klobuchar did in that hearing room. She didn't need to yell, didn't need to perform, didn't need sound bites or viral moments. She just asked a question, held up documents that proved the question was legitimate, and waited while the silence told America everything they needed to know. 37 seconds that changed the conversation about presidential records, document handling, and whether the rules apply equally to everyone. 37 seconds that a Justice Department official will replay in his mind for the rest of his career. 37 seconds that proved sometimes the most powerful thing a senator can do is ask a question and then stop talking. The files remain under special Justice Department custody. But the secret is out. And in Washington, once the secret is out, the pressure doesn't stop until someone provides answers. Real answers. Not 37 seconds of devastating silence.